Hello, everyone. Welcome to Behind Enemy Lines' first Tuesday night run. And Mike Lauber is a friend of mine, and he's going to be actually on the Tuesday night shows, helping us out. And we're going to air Tuesdays and Thursdays now. So Mike's going to be on Tuesdays, and then still going to hit Paul on Thursday. So Paul's still here. He's running for office. He's been very, very busy. And then Mike is the experienced host now, so he could give me some coaching as we go along here. So I'm kind of excited about that. I've been on Mike's show before, and now we're going to do this together on Tuesday nights. So welcome, Mike.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Terry. And yeah, you guys might recognize me from. Usually, I'm on in the mornings with Derek Evans on the Insurrection, and you can find that over here on Ex American News. We're going to start carrying Behind Enemy Lines every Tuesday and Thursday live. I know we're a little late with the start this time, but we've got a fantastic guest, and we're going to dive deep into human trafficking, child trafficking, and have a conversation with somebody that actually took a stand and helped put the brakes on this and helped inform a lot of people at the border exactly what was going on. A person that helped discover that children were being handed off to known gang and cartel members. So Aaron Stevenson, thank you for being with us here tonight.
Thank you both. Thank you all.
Hey, I'm honored to have you on there, sir, and your sacrifice for doing the right thing. And what you told the kids, you want to stand up for what's right. And so, I mean, that's what things I told my kids is like, we have to do this. We're losing our country. And if we don't have a country, who cares if we have a job? I say that lightly, but we do care if we have a job. But if we don't have a country, what good is a job going to do us or our children, right?
That's right. Yeah, I didn't tell my kids obviously what was going on when it happened, but like right before like my firing like commenced, basically, it was over the summer of 2022, and kids were in DC. So took them to, the Bible Museum. We walked on the National Mall, and we were walking back to the train. I was just like, let's have the talk, like might as well actually get this thing out of the way. So we talked about it, had a great conversation. My kids were late, early teenagers then, or late adolescent, I should say. And it was deep. It was profound. We had, that asked good questions. It was really deep conversation, and I'm lucky for that, I guess.
Yeah, it's tough. So why don't you give a little elevator pitch in the background of who you are and how you got to where you're at, and then we'll just go back and forth, Mike, with some questions with Aaron, right?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Any part I'm going too fast, because I do talk fast. Tell me to slow down. I'm easy to be, controlled.
and wait, I'm going to jump on one other thing. So we got a lot of our enemies here in this area that you're from. Say hi. Yeah. So he used to live out here. So hey, enemies, their stalkers are watching us. So
yeah, so
county
I was
watching us.
Yeah, I was born in Hazel Crest, South Suburban Hospital in '82, and then I actually was raised in Crete, Illinois, until sixth grade, and in sixth grade moved to New Lenox, so a Will County footprint, if you will. Went to where to go to Martina Junior High and Lincoln Way. Well, before Lincoln Way split, I was the last full.
Oh, we wrestled you guys. I went to Oak Lawn. We wrestled Lincoln Way.
Yeah, we were good football one year. That was my freshman year, and then we were back to being whatever we were. But graduated 2001. Went to boot camp July 2001. Right after that, Marine Corps boot camp, 9/11 happens. I graduate in October, and that's when everything kind of changed. Like that was a pretty major event for a lot of people. I just joined the military, so obviously my trajectory shifted a little bit. Ended up doing 2 enlistments. Went to Iraq 3 times. I was in 04 through 05. I was in Najaf. 07 and 08. I was in Alhambra province. Did a lot of just different kind of work. My first deployment, that was more combat heavy. We did the deliberate assault in the cemetery. It was developed into a coin atmosphere, but it was a little bit different. 07, 08, that was way more counterinsurgency. Working with the local populace and just kind of understanding things. After my 3rd deployment, as having 2 kids already, I was kind of like, all right, it's not for me anymore. Like I still like being a Marine, but it wasn't for me. My heart wasn't in it anymore. But I still wanted to do like some kind of, service, if you will. Right. And so I was like, oh, why not DHS, like Homeland Security? Like, let's go protect the home. That sounds great. And so I tried applying to a lot of jobs, couldn't get in. I didn't have a background yet. 8 years in the Marine Corps is not only that much to become a Fed. So I contracted for National Ground Intelligence Center and DIA. I did 3 deployments to Afghanistan, 2010, 2011, 2012. And that was during the peak, if you will, of when Obama kind of initiated a lot of things in Afghanistan. So I was in Helmand supporting the Marines and the Brits during Op Mushtarak and Op Herrick.
And what does that mean? Like when you're contracted, right? And then you're out there supporting the Marines. I mean, do you carry a weapon or what? Like, what does that mean? Because I'm not, I mean, I hear about this all the time, but what does that mean? You know?
Yeah, no, so I'm an analyst, not an operator, right? I was in working with like ODA teams, that kind of stuff, but I was doing intelligence work. So specifically, I took a contract for forensics and biometrics because I hadn't done that yet. When I was looking at the job market for analysts for contract roles, I could have made like a lot more money doing like targeting stuff, but it's like I've already done that. I know what I'm doing. I'm late 20s. I'm trying to actually still grow as an analyst. So I worked for this contract that we did biometrics intelligence, so understanding the full scope of how we collect DNA, fingerprints, facial photographs, all those things, but then how to use it, and then that's where it kind of depends, right? So 2010, working for the Marine Corps or working for the Marines in Helmand, they didn't really know what to do with it. So we would brief commanders, and I was trying to be more directed as I was an analyst, more street level, more like out there, not so much in the skiff, back at main headquarters. So I'd go out to the forward positions and like meet and greet with company commanders, battalion commanders, and talk to them about here's our capability. What do you guys do? And basically, we just kind of, after a while, we just started telling the commanders, we'll tell you who's killing your Marines, and we'll tell you, we'll get you to understand the human terrain in the battle space. And from there, they were like, we can use that. So we got really good running it with detainee operations, obviously base security kind of stuff. But also, I was giving them overlays of where we'd see certain people. So they would have known bad guys, and we would see certain collections in certain areas, and that was able to help out with targeting efforts and just kind of understand that. 2011, I started supporting. It was a task force. They were the national tier 1 asset, and we were again doing forensics and biometrics. Same kind of stuff, helping them understand the identity dominance, knowing who they were right away when they get bad guys. And that was a pure raid team. So that was every night they're going out and there's teams throughout the country, and they'd bring people back. They know what they're doing. This is already kind of established for about 10 years now. So this is more just plug and play with a certain analyst. And we were supporting interrogation operations, but also working with other, the ACCM atmosphere, which is, it's not a SAP, a special access program. It's a little bit below that, but helping them understand how they can leverage, again, biometrics and forensics and what they do. So
it kind of intrigues me in understanding the military, and it's it seems odd that they have contractors doing this. You think why don't they have our own guys from the military doing this? They just don't have enough people. Is it that when you guys leave the military, they just hire you back and you go back? I'm just curious I'm kind of intrigued, right? They got contractors over there in harm's way, and then are you allowed to have a weapon on you when you're working out there?
Yeah, no. So never carried. There are contract jobs that happens. Those are rare. It's a different kind of role. You go over there just with not even body armor. You just go over there with your gear. So when I would go to 4 positions, it's and then you're staying there the night. There's a policy where it's certain directional logistics. So I'd be out there wearing clothing like this, walking off like an airplane, or not airplane, like a helo. And of course, the guys out there are like, who the hell is this guy? And I'm sleeping in dirt holes with them that night, though, So, but that's why I did it. You got to establish support. It's we're here for you guys. Tell us how we can help you guys,
Wow.
But yeah, this is also because probably more in the industry, right? Whenever there's a war, there's money. Whenever there's money, there's opportunity. That's just the whole thing. I'm not going to even not lie about that. Military can do things, but yeah, it comes down to also a manning issue. How much can certain MOSs take on certain roles that are completely dependent on a new battle space? You don't want to change your entire military just because you're doing one operation. That's a major problem. So as we see right now in Eastern Europe, it's probably good that we didn't dive too hard into 4GW and understanding just completely counterinsurgency atmospheres, because big army still needs to drive tanks. Artillery still needs to put steel on target, different type of warfare, which is obviously ain't going anywhere. But yeah, so that was that. And in 2012, I finished up my last deployment, and that was again working with special operations teams and understanding how to leverage basically further capabilities with biometrics into what they were doing with other technical collection. And it's just it's problems to figure out, because that's all intelligence is. You're reducing the confusion for the commander. He has a question, can I answer it? That's all it is. So it depends on who you're working for. It depends on the unit and the mission that you have, and you figure out problems. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. They need somebody that can not just sort through, but also interpret the information and then deliver it back to them in a way that they can ingest it and then make accurate decisions, or use it to track down a target or whatever else. But yeah, you're in a specialized role to help them operate more effectively.
Yeah, that's all it is. And so then when I finally was offered a Fed position in DHS in 2012, I took it on the advice of a mentor of mine. Sure. And this was working for the it's a smaller office, but basically we're working at the National Targeting Center in at the time Reston, Virginia, and just an analyst. So you're just you're doing like vetting operations. So you go to work, they give you a list of like aliens or travelers coming in the country, and you just go like, okay, who are these people? And you just got to figure it out. We were obviously working more with an Afghan and Iraqi population based on the visas they were using. So this is why I was kind of like focused on that. Yeah. And this is where I started on understanding like, okay, we have major problems when it comes to the whole like industry of, foreigners coming in this country, like vetting, for example. It's, when people say all the time, like vetting, it's like, yeah, guys, a lot of things can't be vetted for. A lot of things you just can't do vetting on. Ideology, sure, you can vet an ideology as long as you have a lot of information on it. But we were seeing Afghans come in, and again, we were in Afghanistan at this point in time. So this is like 2013-ish. We've been in Afghanistan for 12 years, like getting a lot of collection on a lot of data on a lot of people. So we know who these people are, and yet they're still getting immigration benefits, or they're still getting travel authorization. They're still getting past like the refugee process. So after working there for about 18 months, I'm just realizing like, man, like we're not doing a good job. So I'm talking to my boss, another mentor of mine. And he's like, well, you can always go work for USCIS. So I started applying for a few roles there. That's U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. So DHS is the big umbrella, right? They cover immigration. And you've got a few different lanes. You've got the people that work with the legal immigration process. That's USCIS. CBP controls the in and out of the country via official travel and stuff. Border Patrol works under them, and they do the blocking mechanism at the physical land borders. And then ICE goes, oh, bad guys got through, they take them out. So that's like the life cycle of. So I was working at USCIS, and it took, I'm talking like 3-4 weeks, like just after my NDOC, get computers, get all the logins, and meeting some of my colleagues. I remember there was a woman, I think her name was Diana, I forgot now though. She was explaining to me like a problem they were having was immigration officers weren't going through the fingerprint records for the aliens that they were looking at. I was like, it's mandatory though, isn't it? They were like, yeah, it's been mandatory for years now. And I was like, what do you mean they're not going through it? They're like, they're not doing the checks in the systems. And I was like, okay, so why are they allowed to process the benefit, the immigration process, without? I was like, I don't know, just that's the way it's set up. So yeah, like right away you could see there's major problems. And
was there no ramifications for them not following that process either?
No, that was the hard part. So we would try to report it. Our job. So my unit specifically under USCIS. So again, now you have USCIS, a little umbrella. And I worked in this component called FDNS, Fraud Detection, National Security. So we were there to, of course, detect fraud and national security. So when we see, aliens with different names, or we see like just, yeah, that's a fraud case, or that's this, that, we would have to work with immigration officers and asylum officers or refugee officers to be able to convey our findings. And that you're talking like two different types of people at this point, because there is a cultural difference, throughout any job, obviously, but at a job that kind of attracts a certain ideology, you're going to be working with them and trying to convey, findings about like, hey, that's actually that guy has applied for a different benefit with a different name. We know that because his fingerprints matched up, right? Yeah. And then they were just like, yeah, but this is this is Abdul Rahman. That's him right there. I'm like, no, yeah, but Abdul Rahman actually applied 2 years ago under a different name.
Yeah, it's Mohammed.
when
Yeah.
you get pushback like that, Aaron, right, from somebody, is
Oh
it
my God.
because they're ignorant, they're lazy, or they're doing it on purpose, or probably a mix of the both, all three of them?
I honestly, and I've been always kind of saying this. I think about 65% of the workforce just kind of shows up and does their job. You know, they're not bad people, but it's like that's humans. They show up with your wrench, turn the wrench, right? Most people don't care
Yeah.
about their job, and not for better or worse. You do have ideologues, without a doubt. It's probably more so though in the places that you go to. So I'm sure if you went to components of DoD, yeah, you'll get some more hardcore guys that might be Warhawk. Okay, well that's why you're a DoD. Understand that. You go to immigration though, you will get people that their focus is that. I've had a boss tell me when I was trying to I was conveying, I was explaining very clearly like this emergent trend coming out of this population of transnational organized criminals, your cartels. And I was explaining to her, I'm like, hey, we're seeing a major uptick right now in MS-13 and 18th Street Gang. Like, and they're using like all one kind of benefit, and they're all coming through one part of the country. Like, this is a thing. We should probably be reporting this. And I was pushing this for months. And then finally, I guess she had enough of it. She did start yelling at me from my colleagues. And this is where she told me directly, we are not a law enforcement agency. We're an immigration benefit grant.
What?
Yeah. And this was in front of people. Now, this is where it's like half true. Like, you're right. USCIS is not a law enforcement agency. We have credentials. We have no arrest authority. We have no guns. We can't do this. We can't even detain anybody. But we're not just a immigration benefit granting agency. We're an immigration agency. So we do respond to intelligence requirements. We do respond to the National Intelligence Priority Framework. We do have a job to detect fraud and national security, right? FDNS.
Yeah. Well,
and I'm conveying this for. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, if you guys were doing your job and vetting fingerprints and other things there too, then you'd also be catching people that are trying to defraud that system, or potentially catching people who, maybe since they got here, their fingerprints turned up on the battlefield in Afghanistan somewhere, and now they were an operative with Al Qaeda or whoever we were fighting over there at the time. But if nobody's doing that job, nobody's checking those things, then none of the agents that you're there to support can properly do their job. And this also opens up Americans to potential harm, because it isn't just about the fraud, it's catching the dangerous people too.
Right. And so this is where we kind of were, right? So this is not hard. This is not like complex analysis. This is honestly kind of black and white stuff. My cat's in the way. Sorry, guys.
You're fine.
And again, the pushback, it wasn't just, like, no, I want you to go do this instead. Or this wasn't like, I'm actually smarter than you. You have to go work on this. This was her being like, you need to stop what you're doing right now. So she was more, I think, of a mindset of like, I'll just say it. She was probably a leftist, more left-wing as far as how we should be doing immigration. And it's like, that's understandable, but it's like we run for office. Like, we're public servants. We weren't, we're not appointees. And they kept happening.
Yeah, so Aaron, when you said you're like tracking some of these cartels and then you flagged them of getting, some of the same kind of benefits, could you explain what the same kind of benefits mean and how they're different? Because this is new to me and probably many people. So what does it mean when you say I saw these cartel members and using the same kind of benefits? What does that mean?
And so it would, and again, this is where it's going to go like a million different ways. So some examples, right? I'll try to keep it, like not, and then one time this one guy did this. The biggest one obviously is they would come across the border illegally. So they have no status, as we call it. It's also known as entry without inspection, or EWI. We call it EWI. This is what we call your illegal alien, right? And it would depend on what happens now. So over time, they would just get deported. Okay, no big deal. But then after a certain time, kind of around like probably 2015-ish, maybe a little bit after that, we start seeing a big increase in defensive asylum. And so there's two kinds of asylum in the world, right? You have the asylum that everybody thinks about all the time, which is affirmative asylum. This is where the alien initiates the process. They are telling the immigration authority or the port inspector, the overseas consulate, whatever. They initiate it by saying, I'm being persecuted here. I need help. I need out of here. I can't go back home. That kind of thing. This is like your political asylum, right? So like your old Soviet ambassador gets in the country and he's like, I can't go back to Russia, right? And that's a very, very small proportion of the whole entire asylum enterprise, right?
Really?
The big, oh yeah, the big population is called defensive asylum. Defensive asylum is you're already here. You're now in law enforcement removal operations. So federal law enforcement removal operations. And then you make your persecution claim then, which is, no, I can't go back home. If I do, I can get hurt, persecuted, tortured, killed, whatever. And this introduction into the defensive asylum process. This thing sucks. And I will say that very, very clearly. So for this process, you go through one of two screenings, and I'm not the most clear on it still because it's kind of complex. But one of the screening mechanisms is called credible fear, and one's called reasonable fear. It does not mean your fear is credible, but it kind of does, right? And it's just the name of it. But understand that it's a screening mechanism. Sure. And so this is where an asylum officer listens to your testimony, and it's only testimony. So, for example, if I say, don't send me back home if I could get tortured again. Oh, you've been tortured? Oh, I have. I was cut up. I was beaten, whatever. I don't have to show my scars. I don't have to prove any medical records. It's just my testimony. So the asylum officer goes, okay, check Raj, I've been told to say approval for these things. And if I'm an asylum officer, if I do an approval, it's approved. It's now done for basically up until the immigration judge comes into play. That could take 5 to 7 years, as we found out.
Yeah. You guys, I got to get a cough drop. I got a bad cold. I'm gonna get a cough drop. Keep talking. I'm sorry.
No worries.
But if I'm the asylum officer and I go negative on this application, I now have to get my supervisor to approve it. And again, there's a culture inside of the agency which kind of leans one way politically.
Yeah, that wants to approve. Yes.
Yeah. So you see these asylum rates at this stage right now, the credible fear, reasonable fear, you see the approval rates around 80, 90%. And that's consistent over a long period of time. Years down the road now, the immigration judge finally gets in front of the alien, goes through the case. They're approving these cases at 13, 15%. It's complete opposite of the numbers.
And that's more like it should be, I would think.
Right. But they've been here legally the entire time. They've been here legally the entire time. 5, 6, 7 years. And so this creates that giant loophole of wow, they know how to exploit the immigration system. And so we're trying to explain this, and we're not even trying. It's very, very clear how to do this. And just no, absolute pushback. I was writing intelligence papers on this thing, unclassified stuff, with statistics, basic numbers, simple math. I'm not even going into anything crazy. And it's yeah, guys, these patterns exist everywhere you look throughout our agency, throughout years, whatever. It's there. And I couldn't get it approved. They wouldn't publish it. So
they obviously don't want this information coming out because it's like a lot of the things that we're learning now that have gone on within government for really in perpetuity. And that's all the corruption, the money laundering, everything else. The people that are working in immigration are basically trying to fast track more people in instead of trying to protect our border and process legitimate claims. I mean, that's what's really sad about it, because there are people with legitimate asylum claims like, Annie Cyrus. You can see her here on Ex America News on Tuesday and Thursday evenings. She fled Iran after being sold into slavery, went to Turkey, and then had to wait several years to get processed at the UN for asylum here within the United States. But at least there was some kind of a check. They made sure that she had warrants out for Iran's government, variety of things. But there's people that do legitimately need help somewhere. And it's also, ignoring all these rules. Like right now, a lot of these people that we're processing in from Uzbekistan and wherever else, China, they don't go to the next nation, the next friendly country with the border and process their claim. They come here, but we take them in anyway, even though they violate those laws. It's just been open season for anybody that wants to come in the United States for decades now. And under the last 4 years, that increased exponentially. And now everyone's feeling the pain because we're finally paying the price for it. But I mean, this went on. Sorry, Aaron, what year was this approximately? Well, this was still going on?
So this was around probably 2017, 2018. And this is when, again, I'm showing them matches to that transnational organized crime watch list. So, and that thing, by the way, again, it's small. We call it the TAC watch list, cartel watch list. This thing at the time was capped at 20 or 30,000. By the time I got fired, it was capped at only 40,000. But this is where the nightmare ensues. This is where it's major problems, because now the terrorist screening database, the terrorist watch list, there's no cap on that thing. There's no limit, But this thing, which there's a land border. Yeah, you're going.
Yeah, why would you put a limit on any type of watch list like this? Like if we hit 10,000 people, suddenly the rest aren't terrorists? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, again, ideologues push their view on the government.
Yeah.
So this was the working group I was a member of. This was the forming community. Now, and again, this is where I say it, like, there's not bad people in the government. Everybody was opposed to this idea of putting a cap on it. At first, it's like, okay, yeah, sure, risk adverse. We don't want to like lose track of it. After like a year and a half, though, it's like, okay, yeah, we're ready to cook. Like, we know what we're doing. We've been doing watch this thing as a whole, for a while now. We're good. Like, let's throw in the populations. Let's get to work here. And the lawyers and they weren't even bureaucrats; they were just feds that worked at the DHS Office of Policy. They put these big stamps on it, saying like, "No, we're not going to be doing that." And they ended up winning the argument. I have no idea why or how, but it's just you do get a ideological push across the government, no matter where you're at. Typically, again, from more establishment type personas, and it's not just like that one thing. This is across like numerous things that. Not just I've experienced, but my own experience, of course. I've seen it with terrorism cases. I've seen it with obviously how information sharing works between agencies. All those different things. Like it's pretty bad, to be honest. And that's why when I blew the whistle publicly, it wasn't out of like I found this on day one. I think this is like 8 years in my time. Like I've been trying to address these things at work. I was doing my best. And it's like, okay, this is not going anywhere. Like I'm clearly failing at like trying to solve this thing internally. No one's listening. And so I was like, all right, screw it then. It's time to go public. That's why I did it.
So if you could go through with our audience what finally happened that made you decide to come forward and blow the whistle and kind of the process leading up to that, because guys, if you haven't heard this before, again, this is a really interesting story, and again shows you what we're dealing with right now and why it's so difficult to get all these agencies stripped out, why this is going to be a process. And there's a lot of people expecting like instantaneous immediate results from the Trump administration, and that's not going to happen. We can start correcting the problem, get on a better path, but eliminating some of these problems are just idiot things that are going on. It's going to take time to clean up a lot of these agencies.
Yeah, and as you share your story too, it'd be great if based on you coming out, right, and blowing the whistle, has anything changed, for the better since you blew the whistle, or do you even know, or you not, so please add on to that on the back end. All right.
That's a good question. Okay, so and if I, I know we're kind of conversational right now, so I'm not, when I smile when we're talking about child trafficking, it's like I'm not like making light of it.
That's not why you're smiling. Yes, it's the
It's the core of the guy. You guys are good news. All right. So, anyways,
I thought your cat was under the table. All right.
All right. So, in the December 2020, we started getting open source reporting that there's going to be a run on the border, right? So like we all knew this was coming. This throughout DHS. Anybody that logged in the computer, you could see like there are mass amounts of people coming. No one knew how much it was going to be. So that part was unknown, but it's like there's going to be a rush. This is guaranteed.
Yeah.
And it was obviously right away. So, and also we knew probably about, I think the first report I saw on it was maybe the first week of January. They were doing collection on like talking to people coming over, and we're talking like across the ports, everywhere this is happening at, it was all economic. Like these people are coming because they need money. They need money to send back to their families, their homes, whatever. But this is an economic like push from the masses, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying every illegal alien, but I'm saying like that was the shovel. That was everyone kind of going forward. And
that's great. And I wish everybody could, come here to have a better life, but that doesn't justify asylum or some of the reasons why they're coming here, right? And not to be mean, or that just doesn't make it right.
No, economic asylum is no such thing. You have to have a fear of persecution, a legit claim, and that most of these people don't. Yeah. So this was in February of 2021, and I came across remember that cartel watch list. So we know what's going on with the people on the watch list, because whatever they do, we can see. So if they get arrested, they get their fingerprints, those prints go up, hits off the database. We get notice saying like, hey, so-and-so was arrested. Okay. Any kind of immigration enforcement, whether it be a deportation flight or they're seeking a benefit, anything where they give fingerprints to any law enforcement or federal agency, we see it right away. other things too. There's flight records, there's prison releases, there's all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of ways government collects information that's not too revealing, right? And this one came across, this one notice, and it's just an email, plain language. It's kind of government-y, so you got to know how to read it. But it said that the applicant gave the fingerprints to HHS for, it said, 6 USC 279 USC sponsor. That's all it said. And I was like, well, whatever that is, I don't know. And I brushed it off. It's not, I didn't recognize this or whatever. I saw another one a month later. And I saw that, same thing, 6 USC 279 USC sponsor. And I was just like, what the hell is that? I know the structure of it. It's like, okay, 6 US code, but what's 279 UAC? Like, I don't know what that is. So I Googled it, and it talks about this unaccompanied alien child program. And I had no idea about that. So I take that code and I look through my my Outlook profile, which I had saved all these records going back to when this watch first started. And there was two, I just searched that code, 6 USC 279. I had structured it, try to get different variations. And there was only two results, the one from March and the one the month previous in February 2021. And I was just like, okay, so is this like a new thing? Or we do a new collection? Like, I don't know what this thing is. And I asked around, like my colleagues being like, do we deal with unaccompanied kids, guys? Like, what is this program? Nope. And people were asking, they were like, you mean like special immigrant juveniles? I'm like, no, this is a whole different thing. Like, I verified that. This is like a weird program. They're like, nope, not here. All right. And so then another one comes in April of 2021. So third and 3 months, and 6, 7, that same little code as far as what they were doing. So I was just like, what the hell is this? And I looked at the aliens, and I started going through the immigration history. And so this dude was from Romania, actually. He was from a Balkan group. The two previous, one was a woman from, I think, Honduras. The first dude was a guy from El Salvador, and they were in different parts of the country. So like the Romanian dude was in, I think, Texas. The Honduran was up in Rhode Island, and the Salvadoran was down in Georgia. And I was just like, why are 3 different gangs from 3 different parts of the world in 3 different parts of America doing the same thing? And that was my little like kind of ding ding ding. And so I started looking now. Again, this is April, so like we've been seeing this border rush now for like a good 2.5, 3-ish months. And I was just like, what the hell is it? So I just started looking around. I started going through intel reporting from throughout the TOC program, so all the different agencies, the whole of government approach to address transnational organized criminal activity. I'm going through their intelligence information reports. I'm going through their analysis. I'm going through whatever they published and like produced. Nothing on child trafficking, first off, but nothing about unaccompanied alien children either. So now I'm looking throughout the rest of DHS. I'm calling around. I'm asking people like, is anybody here tracking like, this whole thing, like UACs or like child trafficking or this whatever? And everyone was like, no, never heard of that before. Nope. Everyone was the same thing. There was also no curiosity, which is, and I'll get to that in a second, but no one was like, oh, hi, Aaron from USCIS. No, but wow, that falls inside of our job. What do you mean by that? Like, no one was doing that. This was just like a
government culture. Is that government culture, Aaron?
I said most people, they're going to show up and do their job. So anything
do the bare
like
minimum.
this, or and it's just for better or worse. That's people. That's a human condition, right? And again, all these aliens were on the TOC watch list. They all came in illegally. They all had prior removals, and they were all seeking defensive asylum. So one of the policies, by the way, just like there was a cap on the TOC watch list, there's also this thing where if you are seeking defensive asylum or any other kind of protected class benefit, like refugee or other asylums, you're actually supposed to come off the watch list. That's a manual process. So the analysts at the TSC, the Terrorist Screening Center, if they see like, an alien come in and then seek, then go to USCIS for like their screening for credible fear, the alien sees that because the analyst sees that because the biometrics, they're supposed to go, oh, I recognize that, come off the watch list, manual process, human review. But these are just kind of contractors kind of doing their job. So they would miss a lot of these things. So the fact I'm seeing this at a 1 every 4 weeks across the world, across the country of the same activity, that was my like, this is a problem. Like something is big and we're not tracking it. So I was pushing stuff to Project Veritas, the journal I was working with, And I'm like, dude, like, come on, man. Like, this is child trafficking. Like, and I'm showing you pictures of the aliens too. This is the part that I can't really show you guys because I don't want to do the whole get in trouble for that part. But when you got a 22-year-old dude, 22-year-old dude, 25-year-old dude, tatted up, becoming a sponsor for children, it's like, yeah, that's not labor trafficking. This is sex trafficking. We know exactly what they're doing. I have no idea who the kid is. I can't see that part. I can only see that this is a guy reaching into the pool, basically. And that's how I thought about it. I didn't realize until Tara wrote us that it's actually the reverse. The child shows up at the border with the contact information for the sponsor. So this guy was designated already to get the kid anyways. And again, this is like, 4 or 5 cases now. And the journal I'm working with, he's like, dude, like, I cannot find any of this stuff. Like, there's no history of it. I can't find any sources. No one's confirming this stuff. And I'm like, you guys got to push this out, man. Like this, like I have failed at work. Like no one's listening to this, but this is child trafficking at a level I can't understand. And I projected this is like probably happening. Like, man, it's like 900, 1,000 kids. This could be 1,200 kids, because I'm just doing rough numbers. Like how many
are on the watch
list. Yeah, I know. And I didn't realize it was, wow, this could be 20,000 kids over 4 years.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this has to go out. So I pushed them to do an interview with me. So that's when, James O'Keefe and I did the interview in July of 2021. And right before the interview was my major confirmation. DHS INA, Intelligence and Analysis. This is the components. Remember DHS, that umbrella. You got USCIS, ICP, DHS INA. So INA, Intelligence Analysis, this is the Intel community component of DHS. So these are like these are the guys, right?
Yeah.
They put out called a collection primer for international criminal organizations. And their entire analysis, this is what we are going to be collecting on, and this is why. It was all guns and drugs. It was fentanyl, it was, whatever else, cocaine, I don't know, and then like drugs, right? Not one thing there was on child trafficking. Nothing was not even human smuggling or human trafficking. It was just guns and drugs. And that was like, I don't know, maybe a week before my interview. And I was just like, okay, I'm not going to give them credit for not knowing this, but it's like, it kind of explains to me why no one's answering the phone being like, yeah, we're tracking, we're seeing this thing. No one's giving direction from the top down to do so. And that's one key thing is this. The intelligence is a very top down approach. It comes from the president and goes downward. You know what I mean? So it's like, all right, well, this ain't going to get fixed. And this is not a state solution type thing. This is a different apparatus. It's like, no, this is a major, major problem. And again, I was projecting like 900 to 1,200 kids were getting trafficked. Like, just based off what I could see with, some things. I didn't realize some of these sponsors were getting a couple hundred kids, right?
Wow.
And yeah, so the story goes out. And I don't, see anything else on that until Tara Rodas' story comes out in November of 2022. Now, in that time frame, so this was so my story is published, in August 2021, and this is during the fall of Kabul. So this is, remember that whole
yeah.
Yep.
So again, I'm a Marine. I was working with special operations contractor in Afghanistan. I'm watching it, like I can't believe this sucks, whatever. And a buddy hit me up, one of my old colleagues that was working with the teams. And he brought me into this group signal chat about, it was, I couldn't even tell what it was. It was just like, mass traffic was kind of going really, really quick. And he tags me in a question, and it was about immigration, saying like, hey, how does, like advanced parole work? And I was like, oh, well, this is how it works, blah, blah, blah. And I hit him up. I'm like, dude, what is this thing? And this is like, again, early August 2021. He said, they're working on getting their sources out of there. They're working on getting their old interpreters out of there. It's like, it's crashing down hard, Aaron. And I was like, I'm seeing it on TV, but like, I'm not seeing much else because, I'm not tracking this. I'm not DOD. And it's getting bad there. Like, we're getting everybody out of there right now. So I stayed in this group until after the last airplane left. And I was seeing like kind of live feed, like what was going on in Kabul. So I knew that there was threat reporting of a suicide bomber like 10, 12 hours prior to the Abbey Gate attack. We knew it was a complex attack. It was more than just that. We knew about the perimeters that got established. We knew about the Afghan gate guards that abandoned their position. And that's why the Marines had to reestablish exterior security. Like all these things that were happening. And it was just like, wow, I know we're not checking these dudes because they were just flying through the gates. Marines aren't there to do like, visa vetting, right? They're there to keep security. So when they're being vetted by DHS and other components in like Dubai, in Spain, Italy, all these other exterior places, they're there for like a couple of days and they're already in America. So I'm like, I know that these dudes are not getting vetted. Like I've done vetting, and it could take a couple hours for one guy, and it's like they're getting pushed through. I know that because also when you do a program effort like that, you do a standard. So it's like, hey, look for on the guy's main like biometric page, take that guy's information, whatever's on there, and that's it. So if they find more phone numbers and email addresses, they're not looking up those things. So the number he first reported, if he even gave one, yeah, they might be checking that. I doubt they're doing many name variation checks. And there's like a lot of things there with those things. But it's even kind of beyond that, because one of the guys, and this kind of comes together with what I blew the whistle on.
Sure.
One of the guys that came through was in the Afghan National Army, ANA uniform. And it's like you can recognize it in the guy's picture. And I'm looking at his biometric record, and like his first record being by, his fingerprints received was like his screening in like Dubai. And I'm like, this guy's wearing an army uniform. Like, why the hell? Why is he wearing an army uniform if this is his first record? Oh yeah, because he got watched as a terrorist like 2 weeks after he arrived in the country. And he was wearing this Afghan army uniform as a way to kind of get through, because he was one of the last few days of letting people like get through the perimeter. So it's like any analyst that knew what they were doing would go like, this guy's wearing uniform he shouldn't have access to, and we have no record of him prior to that. Don't let this guy in. But he came through, got to Dulles. Again, 10 days later, FBI is like, oh, that dude's actually a terrorist. This happened on a pretty big scale. That was the third thing I blew the whistle on, by the way. How many
yeah, and Annie and I covered this numerous times as it was going on, because they found a large number of people that shouldn't have been here, and these are only the ones they told us about, not to mention all the other crimes that were committed by this just giant human wave that they flew into the country as we abandoned Afghanistan and handed it back over to the Taliban after 20 years.
Yeah. And so, I'm talking to, people that are well aware what's going on. I talked to a few guys that actually just flew in from there. And these were actually vetted Afghans. Yes, I know the difference. And I was asking them like, what the hell happened, what's going on? And they were explaining to me. And so I take it back to work being like, hey, I've been talking to people that were there. Like, we need to do some different vetting now, because these guys are all going to get I-765s, 2-year extensions. Like, this is a major problem, and we need to get a handle on this thing, because this is USCIS. Now, my video hadn't displayed me yet, so no one knew I was like whatever yet. But I'm kind of pushing at work, being like, hey, we've had a lot of terrorists come in before. You guys won't publish that paper, but like, there's going to be a major problem with this thing if we don't look at it. And I got told no, straight up. Like, no, we're not doing that. I was actually told to focus on Nigerian marriage fraud. And I was like,
yeah,
no,
that's such a huge problem here in this country.
Yeah.
Well, it's there, but it's like, but there's no imminent danger to American
citizens. That is important.
And then what caused me to go public was this rule change. 2021 was a pretty wild year for me, guys.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
In late September of 2021, at the time, my director, Urjadao, director of USCIS, she notified the workforce of this pending rule change between DHS and DOJ. So I'm sure, as you guys know, the Administrative State, one heck of a problem, right? And they do these things via rule changes. So the law may say this, but then like your rule change dictates what actually happens.
Yes.
And this rule change proposed what I thought was a very political idea, and I know where it came from. The idea was to change the adjudicative authority of defensive asylum and to take it away from the immigration judge and to give it to an asylum officer. Now, that asylum officer, if we go back to the conversation, they approve 89% of the cases. Immigration judges deny the same amount, 89% of the cases. So now you're going to see a complete inversion of who's allowed to be a defensive asylum applicant, and that is a pathway to citizenship. And so I was like, okay, I know this came from the union, because the union's been pushing this, on like all internal documents, nothing classified. But it's like, this is written by feds. These are not appointee positions. This is federal employees writing law. And it's like, that's a major, major problem.
So Aaron, why is the disparity between the asylum and the judges? What drives that disparity?
Ideology.
Is it? Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying every single asylum officer is like, this Birkenstock wearing leftist with like,
Yeah.
Scooby oil on them. But they have a job to do, and a lot of them do kind of have a more accepting,
lenient views on it. Yes, well, we can be nice and say that.
But again, on top of that, though, if they, there's also other pressures from the truer ideologues, those like first line supervisors, the branch chiefs, the division chiefs. If you go no on a case, so if you're, reviewing a defensive asylum claim through credible fear screenings, and you're like, nah, I'm not buying it, this guy's lying.
Mm-hmm.
If you go no on it, you have to get your boss to approve that no. So now you have to, and they're on a time crunch. They have a set mandate of how many cases per day.
Sure.
They're about 3 hour interview, 3 per day. So like anything more than 3 hours, they have to make up that time and work that case either on a time off, weekends, whatever. And all the cases that they go yes on are approved. So those things are a-okay, no problem. So I knew that. And again, like, and I'm not saying every asylum officer is a bad person, but typically you et cetera. And so when I saw this rule change, and I go back to the videos that I saw the union president pushing this policy and completely violating the Hatch Act I was like, okay. I try to explain this to Veritas, and again, this is immigration law, so it's not exactly the most sexy thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And wait, did you say union president?
Yeah. AFG.
Union. It's a union job, right?
Yep. So he's a federal employee who's also a union president. And by the way, that guy specifically, I'm not going to name him. I already have, but he's actually an asylum officer. And that guy has not done a case in like apparently 15, 20 years. And I've talked to people in that office. They're like, all that guy does is he goes to Capitol Hill. He goes and talks to CNN, Washington Post. Like, and again, that's your deep state. Like it's not just, your director, your secretaries and whatever else. No, we're talking GS-12s, but it's their ideals, A
lot of times these unions are more concerned with themselves and their members and their dues than what's right for the country. They really are.
Well, now keep in mind, by the way, because all these aliens that are going to get approved, they'll be filing for more paperwork to get, their LPRs, their citizenships, and USCIS at the time was
more union jobs.
Yeah. But USCIS, they were hemorrhaging money at the time because of 2020. So I'm not going to lie, they have a major financial interest to change this policy because that's money flow for them. Now they're back good again. No one gets laid off.
It's just like the Chicago Teachers Union with all these Venezuelan kids coming in. They want them because money. Funding. Like, people don't understand exactly what you're sharing right now. It's like there's a big impact on how our country is being secured and managed and ran because of these unions. But go ahead.
Yeah. So I that one I blew this on publicly because again, I'm like, if I do another behind the shadows interview, like no one's gonna believe it, no one's gonna care. And I was just like, this is wrong though. And I'm not even saying that from like my own political perspective. Obviously, I know all Trump voters from the 2020 election, they were hell-bent against this thing. I know that for a fact, if they even knew about it. But the Democratic voters for Joe Biden, who also didn't know about this rule change, they didn't vote for this either because Joe Biden as a candidate, he declared in October 2020, he's like, I am the Democratic Party. Like, this is my platform. And the platform was already published. So he took an ownership of what the Democratic Party was going to do. In there is a section about immigration. In there is like one sentence about immigration judges. And it says very clearly, like, we are not going to install ourselves politically over them. We're good governance. We're going to let them do their job without political pressures. Within a year, they're stripping away their only job to give it to people who are just going to ram through this process. And again, this didn't come from Secretary Mayorkas or Attorney General Merrick Garland. This came from the employee union. And I was just like, that's why I was like, no, that's it. This is the one. I am now fed up with a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was going to get fired. It's like, when I blew whistle the first time on the small traffic thing, I'm like, I'm getting fired. This is a matter of time now. But when I saw that, I'm going to really condense my time now. But I thought it was the right thing to do because they were usurping, not just the Constitution, but like a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, this is the one. So effect. As far as child trafficking stuff, nothing. So obviously when I went public, they saw who I was. They were like, yeah, in the video, you were the first whistleblower on this thing. So right away, the government knew who I was. They took away access to all the things I was working on regarding, cartels, whatever else.
Yeah.
Done. They also didn't come back to me and say like, hey, by the way, what did you see? How did you see this? What the hell's going on? No debrief, no, like, again, no curiosity is what was happening. As far as the immigration change by policy via feds, that got challenged by the state attorney general, Ken Paxton. I don't even know where that thing's at right now. I think that rule change went through. I'm not going to lie to you. It can be undone, of course, because it's administrative law. That's how it works. But
Yes.
I know Ken Paxton fighting it. I think as of 2023 or 2024, it was still being fought in courts because again, they were like, you're usurping law. Like the INA does not say this. Like you're creating a new condition. You can't do that without Congress. And then the last thing, of course, was the Afghan terrorist that came in. That story came out in May of 2022. And that's when they were like, go home until we fire you officially, you know? And there was no change there.
Oh, your union didn't defend you?
So as an intelligence research specialist, an 0132, my job code, I'm not allowed to be in a union. Not that I wanted to be in their union, but I'm not even allowed to. Okay. And they told me in my investigative process, because like, they were like, hey, we're doing a, interview with you. It's an investigation on what you've done, blah, blah. And I was like, all right, I understand. So I, got an attorney and they were like, you can't have an attorney. And I was like,
wait, what?
I was like, yeah. So they told me, the investigating team, 2 dudes, they said I'm not allowed to have an attorney. Now, this is like my first interview with them. Like my attorney's on the phone because they wouldn't give them the email to log into Microsoft Teams to do it, right? I was like, all right, guys, hold on. Let me ask my attorney because like he told me don't do this without him. You're telling me I can't. So like let's kind of go figure out what's going on here. We go back and forth, mute. And they told me in the end, they were like, it is USCIS policy that this is an administrative whatever. You don't have the right to an attorney. Now, the union did offer to represent me in this process. The union that I blew the whistle on offered to represent me in this process. And I was like, yeah, absolutely not. Thanks. But, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah. Good decision.
They told me by policy, I can't have an attorney present. So we agreed like, okay, this isn't going to work out. My attorney finally got a hold of them and the attorney investigated a dialogue for who knows how long in which they told my attorney, it's their opinion that I don't have an attorney present for administrative whatevers. And now I'm pretty sure the audience, guys, just with your eyeballs there, opinion and policy are 2 very different words, 2 very different effects. And so he just told me, he's like, Aaron's like, I can't tell you what to do, but it's like, as your counselor, as your attorney, my advice is you do not know when they're going to switch this thing over to criminal. So like, do not do this. I recommend you don't do this without me. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And then we told them, we were like, guys, the minute you guys allow me representation, like I'll answer all your questions, no problem. But I'm not doing this without him because I have rights, as established by whatever. Right?
Yeah.
And they were like, nah, no, you don't. And so they said, I refused to answer the questions, which of course we rejected that in the appeal process, which was a joke anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in that process, the story comes about all the Afghan terrorists. And that's when they told me like, go home until you're fired and we'll let you know. So by October, they told me about I'm getting fired. Next day, and I don't tell this publicly, so I'm not going to explain it, but next day there was a major life event to somebody very close to my kids. So I'm taking care of that. Like the day after I'm being told I'm getting fired. And then they made me burn up all my leave instead of just going on telework to handle the stuff. They wouldn't let me. And then I go the last almost month as a Fed without a paycheck. And then they notified me February 10th. They were like, well, our official findings are, we have lost trust in you. So we're removing you from federal service. And again, they didn't say I lied. They didn't say, I was wrong, even that part. They didn't, it was nothing along the lines of, because I wasn't even political.
Yeah,
and when I'm on public, like I was getting offers by a lot of shows like, oh, come on our show. And I was like, no, like I'm a whistleblower. I'm not an advocate. Like I have done the whistleblowing. If you guys want to cover it, you can, but it's like, I don't believe ethically it's right for me to go out there now and like, boost myself up as this like, whatever. Like I'm a Fed. Like Americans need to know this stuff. I've told them, but I'm not you guys. That's your job. And yeah, they didn't matter to them. So got fired and that was that.
Well, I thought there's like protections for whistleblowers, and
Yeah, so
That's funny. That's hilarious.
and look at that. So obviously, once again, this is it's been a wild ride, right? So
Yeah.
once I get in my firing process, this was in December 2022. Project Veritas was invited to Turning Point at this thing in Phoenix, Arizona, and it was like all the whistleblowers were invited to go out there and like we're standing up to the whatever, right? Cool. I'll do it. I go out there also because Tara Rodas' story had just dropped. Like it was maybe a week or two news about trafficked kids in the DHS program. So once I saw that story, like they teased it, on their Twitter or whatever it was, I called my journal right away. I'm like, because again, I blew the whistle on this thing in July of 2021. We're now November 2022. And I was just like, dude, please tell me this is from us. Like this has been a very, very long year and some months. And he was like, dude, she's like dying to talk to you. And I was just like, oh. So we exchanged numbers. I get Tara's number. And I was just like, no, are you going to the thing in Phoenix? She goes, yeah. I'm like, I will go then. But I wasn't going to go. Because again, like I'm not trying to go out there and establish my personas, whatever. But once she said that, I was like, I'm going. I gotta meet this lady. We gotta talk. And I'm an intel guy. We have this thing called ABC, always be collecting. And so we finally meet up, and I was like, we need to talk right now. We talked for like probably 4 hours for the first day.
Sure.
And we talked throughout the weekend hours. And I was just telling her, I'm like, tell me everything you know. Like, I need to know what's going on with this program. Like, I saw it by seeing some bad guys. Your story is saying it's even worse than that. Like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, exponentially.
And so we talked all weekend. I was, kind of driving out of there on the way back home. And it's one of those nighttime drives going through the desert when it's just like, my life's going to change, isn't it? Because I was just going to become like a fireman, or not a fireman, a garbage truck driver. That was my dream job as a child. I'm like, I'm just going to go take a noble job now and like raise my family, do the right thing.
Yeah.
And then I hear the story and I was just like, there is no way in hell, like, I'm going to let this go. Because this is so much worse than I even realized. I even thought, basically, because I was thinking, again, 900 to 1,200 trafficked kids. And she's saying, like, this is in the probably tens of thousands. And then in March or April of 2023, just got fired. She goes on the Hill, and OIG finished their study about 85,000 missing kids. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is it. Like this was actually it that we were seeing.
Yeah.
And then I didn't appeal anything because I was trying to like fight this child trafficking thing. Mr. Lauber, I'm sure you remember, in October 2023, there was another rule change that we saw. We were like, they're going to codify this entire program into law. This creates the child trafficking environment. So we did this comments campaign to get Americans to copy and paste. And that's all we did for like, 39 days and whatever it was. And then that became almost a CRA. So like my hope, and that's not even my job. So like I've got my job, right? I'm raising my kids. And then I've got this like child trafficking thing that we're trying to get a hold of and like defeat and everything else when we don't have any power at all. Mm-hmm. And so that was my, 2023 through the election of 2024. And then it's like, okay, cool. Now we can like defeat this thing, rescue the kids, destroy these networks, take down the infrastructure. So in this process now, I've also talked to other people and they were like, yeah, DHS violated a lot of things in your firing. They were like, first off, like, did they give you public awareness? Basically, like there's law in U.S. code saying they have to establish like how to contact, protected channels. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what do you mean by this? There's that. There's a lot of things that DHS didn't do. So I did reach out to the investigative whatever, but they take years if they do anything at all. I doubt they will. Negative. But yeah, so as far as that part, if that answers that question. Sorry for the long-winded, but
no. I mean, this has been really interesting, really informative. We are unfortunately almost out of time. Are there any words of wisdom you want to leave the audience with, and what's the best way they can follow you and all the work you're doing?
I mean, I'm really only on Twitter. My handle is at DHS Aaron, DHS all caps Aaron, AA Ron. As far as anything else, I mean, again, I have a job. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. We talked about this, obviously. I'm trying to get back in the government. I'm trying to get reinstated in my old job. I'm not seeking any kind of role like that would, take me beyond what I'm trying to do, which is be in the trenches and like, just doing what I can do best, right? Being an analyst, and like that kind of stuff.
Put your skills
to use. Yeah, exactly. That's I'm 42. You know, I don't want to be, you know, but I know where I'm good at, and I'm good at that. So I'm trying to do
Well,
that.
if Holman or Rodney are watching right now, Rodney Scott or Holman or any of their buddies,
Well,
Yeah,
you're in
we'll
charge,
send the link to him.
right?
But besides that, as far as words of wisdom, I mean, obviously, you guys see on the wall, I'm a Christian, so prayer is obviously the most effective thing. Um, Following obviously content like you guys, I think is probably the next biggest thing as well, because you know, I'm on Twitter, I can see what's being talked about,
Mhm.
and a lot of times, even in the child trafficking sphere, they're kind of dumb conversations, to be honest.
Yeah.
The child trafficking economy in America is also a nightmare, because you got the unaccompanied, you know, children, you got kids that didn't come through the program that got stolen across the border and trafficked. You have CPS and foster care trafficking, which is a whole different pot,
Oh
whole different
yeah.
problems.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
but
definitely going on in Chicago. I mean, without
yeah,
a
oh,
even
Illinois.
even inside these shelters. So, like one of my FOIAs has, you know, at Pilsen shelter, which is full of Tren de Largo guys, right? The Venezuelan gangs and stuff. And they caught a 21-year-old sending, you know, and they redacted everything to 11-year-old girl. They're trying
Yeah,
to, I mean, they're trying to suck them in, and it's the same shelter where they had the Vortex phone doing human sex trafficking.
yeah,
And then that's where me and Ben Berkwam caught him selling drugs on camera right in front of it. I mean,
yeah.
it's crazy. It's definitely going on here in Chicago.
I will say this then. Okay, those things you just described. So this whole thing, like it's doable. Finding these kids, you know, destroying the networks, that's very, very doable. I'm saying this as an intel analyst with a targeting background
Mhm.
that's gone after networks. Like this is a doable problem that we can do. I do believe it's an executive problem. I don't believe in
Yes.
the state solutions. They can be supportive. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
this is a national security crisis. This is a top-down approach that I see it as. So yeah, just you guys out there realize, first off, there is no vetting solution. There is no possibility to vet for child trafficking. So please don't get sucked into conversation about we just have to vet harder. It's not the
Mhm.
case. Yes, vet harder. That's not your solution. But no, finding these kids and destroying the networks, absolutely achievable. We just have to do it. And
Yeah.
I believe in leadership. I've met Mr. Roman once or twice. I've met, I think, Mr. Scott once or twice. They're competent. I believe in them. You know, like they're good dudes. Like they are, you know, aware of this. They have the mindset for it. So
I know Tom is. He said, you know, when he was here in Chicago and stuff, that's, I mean, his major focus is trying to find these children, and I believe he's going
Yeah.
to do that.
Well, as you said, Aaron, the laws that we need are already on the books to do this, to take care of. We already have capable people. What we need now is the will and then the push from leadership to get this done, rescue these kids, go after the networks, and take down these monsters that have been facilitating it. And then look into all these NGOs. We'll have to get you back on here again to discuss that, the whole network there of moving the kids around the country, who's working with where, and the fact that, again, we know that a lot of these people they're being handed off to are gang members, cartel members, other members of criminal enterprises. We know what they're doing with the kids. This isn't a one-off, some gangbanger somewhere that wanted to get her son after he came across the border. This is an organized effort to exploit these children, and it has to stop. And how we have to make that known.
Absolutely. Like, you know, some of the stuff I uncovered here through Catholic Charities, and there's a whole nother show. I got all this FOIA's information about it. And then these crimes these guys are doing are not like typical Chicago street gangs, right? Automatic weapons. Well, they have automatic weapons, but they're using counterfeit money to go out and buy vehicles, cross state lines and stuff. You know, you don't hear about that much. There's something bigger going on here with these transnational gangs, including the sex trafficking, the grooming of the kids within the shelters, and um, there's a lot of work to do here, and hopefully, Holman and the guys are going to get to the bottom, and hopefully they're going to take you in and use your experience. So I'm going to reach out to Rodney and Tom Holman,
thank
do
you.
my
Because
best visibility.
the last thing, I say it a lot on Twitter. Your personnel is always going to be your policy. Like I saw what USCIS did under President Trump's first term. A lot of those things are happening again. I still have friends inside the immigration world, and they're telling me what's going on. You're at the end of the day, as always, your personnel, that's going to be your policy. I'm not saying like, go out there and hire just like, whatever, but you need competent people who's going to actually do the job. So,
well, thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks for what you
thanks
did.
for joining us.
Thanks, man.
Any,
Appreciate it.
You want to bring us out, Terry? Or you want me to close things up?
You could tell, I mean, my throat's killing me.
All right. Well, you'll be better by Thursday. We're gonna get Terry some cough drops and some of Grandpa's old cough medicine. Little what is that supposed to be, like gin, honey, and a raw egg or something? Some disgusting concoction like that. But we're gonna make him drink it, maybe on camera, and he'll probably be sick afterwards. But guys, I want to thank you for joining us today on this inaugural Tuesday episode of Behind Enemy Lines. Thank you again. Please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people the news the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear. And we'll be back on Terry will be back.